Well, friends, Rich here at the Gospel Rescue Mission in Muskogee, Oklahoma, where we have a big, holy, audacious goal, and that is to reveal the glory of God by ending homelessness in the state of Oklahoma. In order to pull that off, we are reaching out to you, the city officials around the state, to work together to accomplish this goal. With this goal in mind, the Gospel Rescue Mission, we have been reading books and blogs and articles, peer-reviewed and otherwise. We've been listening to podcasts and audiobooks and all sorts of conferences and webinars, and you name it, we've been doing this to study and find ourselves as subject matter experts on homelessness. With that in mind, we would like to come to your community and help you to solve this challenging and difficult and complicated problem. What we would hope to accomplish when we come to your community is to do exactly what Robert F. Kennedy, now I'll say senior, now that his son is making a splash, but we'll say Robert F. Kennedy said this, that each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. What we want to do is come to your community and help you to have that first tiny ripple of hope. Hope for your business owners that they will have quality employees in the future, that your business owners will not have someone camped out in front of their business, someone shoplifting and stealing from their business, to be an outreach, tiny ripple of hope for those in your churches as they see these men and women and don't know what to do. We can help them learn the best skills to do this. We're going to be a tiny ripple of hope to the government officials who are being inundated from their city, requesting them to do something about the people camping out in their parks and on their streets and in their sight. We want to help you begin to build that tiny ripple of hope. Now, while it's going to look different in every community, there are going to be some things that are exactly the same. So I'd like to take a moment here and introduce you to my friend Brandon. Brandon has been living on the streets for a long time, but what you may not know, what you would not know about Brandon is that many years ago, he was a local college student. He had been an A student in high school, and so when he got to college, he stepped in assuming that he would always be getting those great grades. And first semester, he rocked it. There was no question, no challenge. He was just on top of it. And the second semester, though, he was in danger of getting a B. Oh, that was too much for Brandon. So Brandon decided, and he realized, hey, I just need to get an A on the final. I get an A in this class. Everything's going to be all right. And so in order to study and stay up long enough to pass this test, he decided to start taking amphetamines. And Brandon did get an A on that test, but he never went back to school. Brandon has a name, and Brandon has a story. And so as we begin to work together, we're going to get to know those men and women we serve. We're going to help your community get to know their story, get to know who they are, and get to know how to best help them. I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about Brandon and some things in another slide here in a bit. And this is Jana. Jana's been on the streets longer than I've been living in Oklahoma. And if you see her, she'll be pushing a shopping cart with baby stuff in it. She's been carrying twins or sometimes triplets for all 8 of those years. And so as people get to know her and talk to her a little bit, they buy her all this baby gear. And she gets some funding from state agencies, and she uses some of that to buy baby gear for babies that are never going to happen. Jana is a beautiful, wonderful woman, but she needs some mental health help. Brandon, he is going to need some addiction recovery help. But just giving a handout is not going to do it. Just putting them temporarily in a hotel or just temporarily putting them into some sort of short-term living, short-term Band-Aid help is not going to solve their problem. We're going to talk about some of the basics that we would bring to you in an all-day seminar if you would just give us that opportunity. So the ideas that we're going to talk about in that conference and that seminar time is going to come from The Tragedy of American Compassion by Marvin Olasky. And we're going to talk just about 4 of his main points: affiliation, bonding, categorization, and discernment. This would be part of the program we would help you develop for that. So first, affiliation. Affiliation is just nearer, closer. The closer you are to the individual, the more you can serve them. First, ourselves, the individual can take care of themselves. They're the best person to be able to do that. If they're not willing to do the change, is not willing to do something different, they are not going to change. This is why handouts don't effectively help anybody in the long run. Handouts are great when there's a storm, when there's an earthquake, when there's some sort of disaster, their house burns down. Those are all appropriate in those moments. But in most cases, the individual is going to need you to care for them and love on them and encourage them to make some of those changes. But when that doesn't work, we all have these moments where we're going to need more help. So we have family. So I have a family that lives close by. I get into challenging times, and they can come alongside help. You let me borrow a car, or they let them borrow a car, or they help with dinner, or whatever is going to be needed. Family is closer near. They know us, we know them, and we can serve one another. It's a give and take. Where most programs are just, we're going to keep giving, hoping they change. But the give and take forces me to be polite and kind and loving to my family. And so all that takes place. And when the family just can't pull it together, either they don't have the resources or the time, then you have the church, the faith community comes together. And when that faith community comes together, they can serve. My father-in-law was a pastor of a church, and there was a young man who was a single father doing a great job, but his car broke down. Now he's in danger of losing his job. And if he loses his job, then the odds of him losing his kids were pretty high. And so my father-in-law allowed him to borrow a car. That came from the faith community. He was able to contact people in his church, make it all come together to serve this young man who drove the car, kept his job until he was able to save up for a new car, kept his kids, kept his job, and life went on. That faith community was able to come around him when his own flesh and blood biological family could not pull it off. And then you have the safety net of the government. That's all the farthest out. But understand that government level can't really get to know you. They don't have they're too far away. And there are going to be times and people that later when I talk about categorization, you'll see there are some people who are going to need that government help. But here's where I'll come back and tell you a little bit more about Brandon. See, Brandon likes to sit out along Highway 69 here in Muskogee, and he will collect money. He's on a local Facebook Live show from time to time, and he collects money, and people put up in hotels, and they buy him food, and they're doing all this stuff, taking care of him. And Brandon loves it. He gets a little bit of that attention, but he doesn't have to deal with his addiction while he's staying in that hotel. And about a week or two later, when people kind of get tired of doing all that, Brandon's in desperate straits. This is the thing. What they don't know about Brandon is that Brandon has a mother who loves him, would love to have a relationship with him. He also has a sister who would love to have a relationship with him, but neither one of them can care for him while he's in his addiction. So we're calling on the community to say, you know what, let's not give Brandon any food. Let's encourage him. Let's meet with him and say, Brandon, we need to help you get clean and sober so you can be restored to your mother. And if that worked out well, instead of going to the government funding, which is where he's going to be heading, if not jail and prison, that sort of funding, but other opportunities that might be out there, or he might even not even make it there, because in this modern world, some of these drugs and stuff on the street are killing people. Brandon may die, and nobody who's been giving him that money is even going to know. They're going to think, oh, what a good person I did, not knowing that my $20 is the one who gave him the hit that actually killed him. I'm not here to put a guilt trip on you. I'm just saying that is one of those possibilities. But what if we were able to help Brandon, encourage him, inspire him, motivate him to go get that addiction recovery help? Then he can be restored to his mother. And then no longer does the church have to finance him. No longer does the government have to fund him. And we have helped Brandon restore his life. Maybe he can go back to school. Maybe he can go back and finish what he started, so that way he can become a valuable member of our community again. Currently, right now, we're paying him to be an unvaluable member of our community. Affiliation is going to be one of the ways that we pull together and figure out how to help people like Brandon. Then bonding. Bonding is this really getting to know you part. At the Gospel Rescue Mission, we have an assessment where we're asking a lot of detailed questions, getting to know you. We have a form to fill out, but it's not really about the form. It's about asking those questions that get to know these men and women. We want to know them physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, know about their past and their dreams for their future and everything in between. We want to best be able to serve them by getting to know them. Too often, programs are just cookie cutter. Everybody's the same going through. We can't do that. We got to get to know them. And we're talking about those men and women on the street. Sometimes we only see certain pieces of them. So like Jana, if you look at this slide, look at this picture, all you're seeing is her mental illness. For Brandon, all you're seeing is the addiction. That's all you see. And you think that's all they're there. But if you spread that out a little bit, you're going to start seeing he's got a little bit of dysfunction. Some reasons why he was so excited and so desiring to get straight A's. There was some win there in his heart that was making that happen. And then that dysfunction creates imperfections. But as all that even together, all that mess is still only a small part of who Brandon is. That mess is only a small part of who Jana is. See, when you get to know Jana, she is a sweet, loving woman. She is one of the best tour guides we've ever had at the Gospel Rescue Mission. She will not, we have an exchange program, which is a whole nother conversation. We have an exchange program where they earn GRM bucks at the Gospel Rescue Mission. She would not accept GRM bucks for cleaning the chapel because in her heart, it was God's house. She was simply doing service to God when she cleaned the bathrooms in the chapel. What a powerful, loving person she is. So we want to see them as the bigger picture. What would Jana accomplish if she was restored to her right mind, restored to good health? What are the possibilities in our community? For Brandon, who is brilliant, wouldn't we all love to have brilliant employees and more of them? Brandon could be that person for you. So bonding is one of the tricks we're going to use for that. That would be the same in every community. And then categorization, how these actually categories work out in your community, we'd figure that out. But it would be very different in each one. But some are going to need relief. Those are the people who are going to need to go to that government help. They're the ones who need the nursing homes. They need live-in recovery programs, long-term live-in recovery programs. They're so deep in their addiction, they're going to need something a little bit more. They're not able to care for themselves, so they can't shower or bathe and some of those things. They need extra help. Then we have our category of just needs work. They've already worked through a host of issues. You've gotten to know them. They've dealt with their addictions. They've dealt with their mental illness. They've dealt with other things. They've got a wrap on all that, and they're able to actually go back to work. We're going to help them get back to work and develop programs to help them do that. We have also those who need a challenge. This is going to be true for most people. They're going to need a challenge. I need a challenge. I create my own challenges, and we want to coach those who are out in the community to also create their own challenges. So for those who need a challenge, we get to know them. We do that assessment, and then we create a contract for them. And we're usually going to find some little things for them to do over the course of the next month. It could be taking a literacy class. It could be learning about their disease. Maybe they have diabetes. We're going to go study that. So little challenges in order for them to move forward. That's the vast majority of those we actually end up serving at the Gospel Rescue Mission, those who need a challenge. And then there's those others who just need some tough love. And I don't like this category. I wish we didn't have to have this category. But as long as you're feeding people and paying people to be on your corners and panhandling, they're going to keep doing it. So tough love says, you know what, I love you enough, I care about you enough, we're going to move you. We're not going to let you stand on the corner and collect money, but we're going to take you to this place where you have food, shelter, and care. You say we'll work for food, well, we have a job work training program for you. We're going to put you right into it. That's the categorization. So you figure out what category, and this is like triage. This is not labeling. That's a very different thing. We're actually kind of opposed to labeling in every way, shape, and form. But this categorization helps us direct them to where they're going to get the services they actually need to move forward. So that way, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, depending on who they are, they don't need our continued help. A lot of programs are really great. They're still housed a year from now, but if the government's still paying for it, it is not improvement. It is still them not earning their keep, not them moving forward on their own. It's us still holding them up. We're still the crutch. We want to help them become self-sufficient, contributing members of our community. And the last one I'll talk about today is just discernment. How do we figure this out? Well, like I said, we've been reading books and blogs and all that and listening to podcasts. We get to know these men and women. And then as people of faith, we have the Holy Spirit to direct us and lead us and guide us and help us figure out what's going to best serve this person today. And what best serves them today may not work next month or next year, but we're going to use discernment to try to figure out which category they go into and how to best serve them going forward. The Gospel Rescue Mission would also be bringing the concept and the strength of a network. It would not just be us. We'd be bringing the network of true charity with us. And these are kind of the core principles of true charity. And one is voluntarily resourced. We're going to put together programs that are not government funded. We're going to be working separate from all that. Yes, those programs are important. We're going to encourage those. But we're going to be putting together programs that are voluntarily resourced by people in your community. That means volunteers. It means funding, everything. It's also going to be challenge-oriented. I touched on challenge-oriented already. We're going to be challenging these men and women to no longer experience homelessness, to get off of that, to get a job, to restore their relationship with their families, to get healing of their physical or mental illnesses. Whatever it is going on, we're going to help them move forward. We're going to be challenge-oriented. And we're going to be outcome-driven. Most programs say, well, I counted how many heads in beds. I counted how many people sat in a class, how many meals we served. Those are all good, and those are outputs. But we're talking about outcome. Did that meal lead to a conversation which led to getting some mental health help and moving forward? Was that outcome what we were aiming for? So we're going to define clear outcomes. We'd work with you to define what those outcomes that we want are. And then we begin to build programs and build a community and a network around your county in order to make those things happen. So again, my friends, my name is Rich Schaus. I'm with the Gospel Rescue Mission, Muskogee, Oklahoma. This is my contact information. Would love to work alongside of you and help you to progress and help you to end homelessness in Muskogee, not just in Muskogee, but around the state of Oklahoma. I thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.